Okay, I want you to imagine, just for a second, a radically honest world. A world where every single person on Earth suddenly woke up completely incapable of lying. There's absolutely no exaggerating on your resume. No polite excuses for why you had to miss that party. No carefully crafted social masks whatsoever. You literally can't pretend to be okay when you're deeply upset, and you definitely can't pretend not to care when you desperately do. Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack the fascinating and honestly kind of hidden architecture of human deception. Now, at first glance, total honesty sounds pretty refreshing, doesn't it? It sounds authentic, like finally we'd be free from the sheer exhaustion of keeping up appearances. But if we look just a little bit closer, something actually pretty unsettling emerges. In a world of absolute, unfiltered truth, our civilization would likely collapse. I mean it. Your relationships would shatter under the weight of every fleeting selfish thought just being blurted out loud. Workplaces, they would become completely unbearable. Social interactions would be absolutely brutal. It's a really jarring paradox, but total honesty would actually destroy us.
So let's really dive into this, because beneath our civilized society lies a super uncomfortable truth. We are creatures who absolutely depend on deception. And what's really wild to me is that the most frequent lies aren't being told by shadowy villains or criminal masterminds. Not at all. They are told by everyday, ordinary people. Loving parents, loyal friends, kind strangers. Even the person listening to this explainer right now, yep, even you. So the profound question we really need to look at isn't whether we lie, but why lying is so incredibly fundamental to the human experience.
To answer that, we've got to take a little trip back in time. Let's kick things off with Part 1, the evolution of deception, looking at survival and perception.
You see, nature has literally hardwired deception into life right from the dawn of time. Think of it as a progression. Step 1, survival often just depended on appearances. Animals use camouflage to hide. Harmless insects disguise themselves as highly dangerous predators. Nature figured out early on that appearances can actually be way more powerful than the truth. Then, step 2 brings us to early humans. Imagine two ancient hunters facing down a massive, terrifying threat. Both of them are internally terrified, but one visibly shows that panic, while the other masks it to project total confidence. Who is going to gain the tribe's trust? Who attracts the allies? The ability to control how you were perceived was a literal, physical survival advantage. And that naturally evolved into step 3, advanced human psychological deception. Basically, our ability to manipulate beliefs and manage impressions to actually shape our social reality.
And the crazy thing is, we actually see this exact evolution play out in basically every human life. Just think about childhood development for a second. When a toddler hides a broken toy behind their back and confidently looks you in the eye and claims a ghost broke it, parents usually panic, right? They think, oh no, I'm raising a liar. But psychologists view this totally differently. The child is actually demonstrating what's known as social intelligence. They're realizing, for the very first time, that other people have minds completely separate from their own. The kid suddenly understands that mom or dad doesn't possess the exact same knowledge that they do. So childhood lying isn't really an early moral failing at all. It's actually a demonstration of complex social awareness. It's a huge milestone in understanding how human minds work.
Which actually brings us perfectly to Part 2, preserving social harmony, and those quiet, everyday lies we all tell.
You know, most people imagine lies as these massive, dramatic acts of fraud or deep manipulation. But think about your normal, everyday interactions. A coworker asks how your morning is going and you say, I'm fine, even when you're completely stressed out. A friend shares news of a big promotion and you say, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you, quietly masking that little sting of jealousy. A family member asks if something's wrong, you flash a smile and say, everything is perfectly okay. These quiet, totally ordinary lies happen literally millions of times a day across every single culture on Earth. We all tell them constantly.
And this brilliantly illustrates a concept called emotional editing. We aren't using these micro-lies to maliciously trick or harm anybody. We're using them as a social lubricant. It's a way to preserve harmony. Think about it. If you were totally transparent all the time, you'd expose every single insecurity, every minor irritation, every fleeting, grumpy judgment you ever had about the people you actually love. Humans rely heavily on these small acts of emotional editing just to avoid causing unnecessary pain to others. Modern society quite literally depends on this filtering process just to function smoothly from day to day.
All right, let's peel back another layer for Part 3, the curated digital reality. This is all about how deception operates in the age of curation.
We've all been there. You scroll through social media and you are immediately confronted with this completely curated reality. Perfect relationships, luxury vacations, constant happiness, endless confidence. It seriously looks like everyone else just has life completely figured out.
But beneath those glossy images lies a very carefully edited reality. What we do is actively hide our loneliness, our self-doubt, our superordinary, boring Tuesday afternoons, and our failures. We are actively constructing these highly refined digital identities specifically designed for public consumption. Deception in this space is so incredibly visible, yet paradoxically, it's so easy for us to completely miss it.
So, the really crucial point here is that most people online aren't actually acting like intentional, malicious liars. Instead, we're all participating in a system that rewards and gamifies appearances. And what that does is create a landscape flooded not with outright falsehoods, but with selective truths. For example, a photo of a smiling couple isn't technically a fake image, right? But it selectively omits the massive screaming argument they had 10 minutes before taking the picture. And the thing is, selective truths are often way more persuasive and honestly sometimes way more damaging than actual outright lies.
Okay, now we need to shift our focus inward. In part 4, we are facing the danger of self-deception, the dangerous lie.
These are the really tough ones, the lies we tell ourselves. It's someone staying in a deeply toxic relationship insisting over and over that everything is fine. It's an employee who utterly despises their career but repeatedly tells themselves they're happy just because they have stability. Or maybe someone postponing a lifelong dream claiming they simply need more time, when really, they're just terrified to fail. We actively rewrite our own reality. We distort the information around us to protect our self-worth. And you know what the terrifying part is? These lies rarely ever feel like lies to us. In our heads, they feel exactly like the absolute truth. There's this truly fascinating principle in psychology that states, the brain does not always prioritize accuracy. Sometimes it prioritizes psychological survival. Let that sink in for a second. Acknowledging reality often forces us to confront deep fears and massive uncertainties that the human mind is absolutely desperate to avoid. So we deceive ourselves to dial down our own emotional pain, completely unaware that our brains are doing all this heavy lifting behind the scenes just to keep the hard truth locked safely away.
And that brings us to our final and definitely most vulnerable layer, Part 5, protecting our fragile identities and the profound connection between truth and who we are.
Look, every single person walks around carrying a story about who they are. A story constructed over years, built on your perceived strengths, your values, your ambitions. But the problem is, reality doesn't always cooperate with our story. When a massive failure happens, it doesn't just threaten our mood, it actually threatens our identity. So what do? We start explaining away evidence. We start reframing events. Because losing a deep-seated belief about yourself literally feels like losing a piece of yourself. We use deception as this thick emotional armor against the harsh contradictions of life.
It really all builds to this intense, terrifying reality. Humans aren't simply afraid of being lied to. We are afraid of being fully seen. Seen without the filters, without the carefully crafted masks, without all those managed appearances. Because complete visibility requires a level of vulnerability that is absolutely terrifying for most of us. Honesty creates risk. If you tell someone exactly how much you care about them, or exactly how insecure you really feel, you are risking a rejection that could completely shatter you.
So, you see, lying has survived throughout all of human history, not because we naturally love falsehoods, not at all. It survived because we desperately need a protective shield. We lie to protect our social status. We lie to keep our relationships from fracturing. We lie to guard our fragile emotions. And ultimately, we lie to protect our very identity from exposure. When you get right down to it, the lie itself is almost always way less important than the specific thing it's guarding. Which leaves us with one final, provocative thought to wrap up this explainer. The next time someone lies to you, or even the next time you catch yourself hiding a little part of the truth, just take a pause. Look beneath the deception. The most revealing question to ask is rarely, what are they hiding? The far more powerful and far more human question is, what are they trying to protect?